Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be talking about infant sleep in the 4 to 6 month age group. A little bit about myself. First of all, my name is Dawn Whitaker. I've been a parenting coach since 2006. I have worked with thousands of families across the globe. I mainly deal with sleep issues, potty training assistance, picky eating, and toddler behaviour. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about sleep in the 4 to 6 month age group. I do find that this is the age group where a lot of parents start to feel like the wheels are coming off the bus. A lot of parents talk about the 4-month sleep regression, where the sleep cycles are changing and can often make you feel like you are getting up 5 times a night versus maybe just once that you were doing before. So it's a very common age group for parents to start thinking about sleep training or for parents to start thinking about making changes. I'm going to start off with what the average amount of sleep is in this age group. Overnight sleep is going to be in the range of anywhere from 10 to 12 hours. I know a lot of parents will strive for 12 hours. The reality is it's not realistic to expect that every child is going to fit in that mold. If your baby's doing 10 hours, 11 hours, or 12 hours, that is all within range for overnight sleep. Because your baby is still at a point where they're going to need feeds, 1 or 2 feeds overnight is very, very common. Weight actually dictates how many feeds they should be having. So at 12 pounds, we're normally at 2 feeds, starting to work towards 1. And then by 14 pounds, we can definitely just have 1 feed overnight. In terms of daytime naps, which can be a huge struggle for lots of parents, they're normally napping about 3 times a day. If those naps are short, there's going to be more naps, of course. Combined amount of sleep is normally around 4 hours, but that is going to reduce as you get closer to 6 months. Another thing that happens around that 6-month mark is that 3 naps drops down to 2 naps, but that is only possible if your child is actually consolidating their daytime sleep and getting past the 1 sleep cycle mark. The awake window pattern normally for this age group is 2 to 2.5 hours. Typically speaking, with awake windows, the shorter windows are in the morning, the longer windows are in the later part of the day. I'm going to give you an example of a very, very common situation that I would see. This is baby Jane. So she's 4 months old. She's solely breastfed. She weighs 14.7 pounds and she is rocked to sleep with a soother. So my question to you is, what do you think her sleep props are? You can probably tell from the fact that I have a picture here with a baby with a soother. And I also did specify that she is rocked to sleep. And so sleep props are items in which parents might use to help a baby fall to sleep. Most sleep associations are going to fall under 1 of 2 categories. We have motion, which could be the rocking, as I'm using in this case here. It might be bouncing on a yoga ball, putting a baby in a car seat and having a drive, putting a baby in a stroller, going for a walk, putting a baby in a carrier, going for a walk. These are all motion-related associations. And then on the flip side to that, we have sucking associations. So that would be a soother, nursing a baby to sleep. Maybe a baby is having a bottle to sleep, and some babies will suck their thumb. So you're probably going to find, if I was to ask you, how does your baby fall to sleep? You're probably going to tell me maybe 1 or 2 things. Maybe you're going to tell me 5 things. But they're going to fall into those categories. So motion or sucking. Sucking associations are typically stronger than motion associations and are slightly harder to break. Here's Jenny. She's a first-time mum, exhausted at the end of her rope. That is how a lot of my clients feel when they call me. She's worried about crying with sleep training, which is completely normal. I've never met any parent yet that isn't concerned about that. She feels that maybe her baby won't love her if she starts making changes. She's worried about failing, not only as a mum, but also worried about failing in the sleep training process. She's also confused by everything that she has read. Unfortunately, now, I've been a sleep consultant for years, there's so much information out there via YouTube, as you found this presentation, on Instagram, on Facebook, just online in general, that the more information you read, I think the more confused you end up getting. And then you end up then doing what you know you shouldn't be doing because you're so confused by everything you've read, and it just kind of goes around in a cycle. These are other common issues that I hear in this age group. Can't fall back to sleep. So very often when I look at what a client is telling me their issues are, not only can their baby not fall to sleep, their baby also cannot go back to sleep overnight, normally because there is some sort of sleep association in place, like I just talked about with the soother and the rocking. Can't go back to sleep without help. Usually it's a repetition of what is happening at bedtime. So an example here would be using the soother To fall to sleep also means that you're going to have to use a sucking prop overnight, whether that's a bottle, whether that's a breast, or whether that's the soother again, because the association is sucking related. How your baby falls to sleep, i.e. sucking, is also going to be how they're going to go back to sleep. Daytime naps are really short. And one thing with this is that when clients come to me and they say, oh my goodness, my daytime naps are dreadful, my whole day is spent trying to get my baby to sleep, we actually have to look at the nights first. We don't make naps the initial priority. Nighttime sleep is the first priority, and that will then lead to better naps. Another one is not sure if a baby is hungry. Some parents will say to me, I know my baby's not hungry. They're waking up every hour and they're feeding. I know they're not waking up because they're hungry. And then some parents might feel really insecure about that. Maybe they had some breastfeeding problems from the beginning. Maybe they had an issue with weight. It's going to be much more difficult for that parent to get over that hurdle, and they are going to be more concerned that their baby is hungry. But we do use weight as a guide. As I was mentioning before, we use the guides of 12 pounds and 14 pounds to allow us to know how long those stretches can be. And of course, if you're bottle feeding, I do think it's a little bit easier for a parent to feel more satisfied with how much their baby is getting, because they can actually see how much they're taking. Like I'd mentioned before as well, another very, very common problem is just being completely confused by everything that's been read. And also in some cases, everything that a parent might already have tried. You know, sometimes parents do call, or they'll, you know, write to me and they'll say, I have tried everything, and it's still not working. Another one is that I'm not the parent I want to be in the day. My partner and I are not on the same page. Very, very common. How men think and how women think is very different. Women are emotionally fueled, men are more practical. So in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, men are more proactive when it comes to wanting to get the sleep training done. And although women often also want to have the changes, they're much more skeptical about the process. And that leads to, I'm scared to let my baby cry. And so the thing with sleep training is that the reality is that there is no such thing as a no cry sleep solution, especially if you have sucking props. The whole reason that you're using those props in the first place is very likely to stop your baby from crying. And so when you take them away, it's inevitable that that is going to happen. What you have to be able to understand is that crying is a normal part of the process. We've then got to look at how you're going to deal with that. And you've got to deal with that in a manner in which you feel good about, or you feel that you can be consistent or confident in. Another common complaint too is worrying about whether or not a baby might be too hot or too cold. So the average room temperature for sleep training wants to be anywhere from 17 to 21 degrees. So all families, even you, are going to have a unique variable, but most families, if they're really, really struggling, they're also going to benefit from change. And a variable could be that maybe you've started solids. And so what I mean by that is if I have a 4-month-old baby that hasn't had any solids and I have a 4-month-old baby that has had solids, solids is going to be a variable to the sleep training process, because that baby is going to be exposed to many different foods, and we don't know whether or not, if they're new foods, they're going to maybe cause problems overnight. And so anytime we go into the sleep training process and a baby is eating solids, we're going to put all new foods on hold, and we're only going to offer the foods that we know the baby is already okay with. So a couple of things here is that a lot of parents sometimes feel selfish that they're going to be putting their child through something for their parents' benefit. What you have to remember is that as parents, your own health is a priority. If you are that sleep deprived that you feel like you're not coping, or that you could be a better parent, or that you could have more patience, or maybe you're not going to be as frustrated, you have to understand that making changes is not selfish. Making changes is you actually taking control of the situation. And although this presentation is aimed at parents with babies in the 4 to 6 month age group, maybe you're watching this and you have a 3-year-old. You do have to make the changes when it's right for you. You also have to remember that as a mum, or as a dad, or as a parent, you are a role model for your child. And so you have to show them that self-care is important. So this is what sleep looks like overnight. So follow along with me. I'm going to use my little cursor here to just show you what happens overnight. So this is 7 o'clock here, and we're going to read the graph down like this. So we're going to come all the way down through till 6 o'clock in the morning. So here I've got bedtime, use props to go to sleep. So as an example, we're going to use baby Jane as the example. Baby Jane is rock to sleep, which is motion, and she has a soother, which is sucking. When she falls to sleep, sucking being rocked, she will relax and her eyes will get heavy and she'll start to drift off. once she's placed in her crib, if she doesn't wake up straight away, which can often happen, and that does drive parents nuts, she's going to sleep for about 45 minutes. She's going to go through stage 1, through stage 2, through stage 3, all the way down to stage 4. And within the first hour, she's going to have something called a brief partial arousal. It's very, very common for children to wake up within the first hour of going to sleep. It's a normal arousal point. That arousal point will not go away, but as your child gets better at putting themselves to sleep, they will get better at going back to sleep here. Once they've fallen back to sleep here, they will stay asleep, unless they're overtired, till around 11:30. So I'm just basically going on what normal sleep cycles look like. You might have just heard me then say about if they're overtired, because if they're overtired, you'll see actual multiple wakings in the first 4 hours. But around 11:30, they're going to leave deep sleep and they're going to enter what we call active sleep. Active sleep runs from midnight all the way through till 5 o'clock in the morning. And in this stretch here, there are multiple wakings. So here we go, you see, midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this stretch here, a baby's going to be waking up all the time. And if your baby doesn't know how to fall to sleep here, they're going to struggle to get through these arousal points here. So that means that not only is your baby going to be up, but either mum or dad is going to be up too, or a parent that's on duty. And they are then going to have to help the baby go back to sleep at all these arousal points overnight. Once you hit 5 a.m., this is where the drive to sleep starts to get really, really weak. It can actually take about 45 minutes, even with props, to help a baby go back to sleep here. And then they'll go back down into deep sleep before waking up to start the day. So what I want you to take away from this is that waking up overnight is completely normal. When you work on your child's sleep, you're not going to stop them from waking up. That's completely impossible. What you're going to be doing is teaching them how to fall to sleep so that they can learn to get through these sleep cycle arousal points on their own. The medical definition of sleeping through the night is actually being able to sleep through active sleep, which is this stretch here. And that's a 5-hour stretch from midnight to 5. So a lot of the time parents think that the sleeping through the night part is the first part of the night, and it actually isn't. First part of the night takes care of itself normally because it is a deep sleep. It's the second part of the night that is always more problematic. This is the sleep learning curve. So the first thing that a baby has to learn is they have to learn how to first fall to sleep at bedtime. And that takes anywhere from 1 night to 6 nights to get to a point where they are asleep in 20 minutes. More common than not, it is 6 nights. Every now and again, I get a unicorn baby where they'll just go down super easy. That is not what I expect to see. When I do see it, I'm sure that those parents feel like they've had a very positive experience with sleep training. But in most cases, it takes about 6 nights to get to a point where they're asleep in 20 minutes without any props. The second part is they have to learn to sleep through the 11:30 to 5 a.m. stretch. And that actually takes 14 nights from when they're last fed in that stretch. And you have to remember that they do have to be at least 12 pounds with no feeding issues to be able to go through that part of the training. The very last part of the nighttime sleep training is learning to sleep between 5 and 6 a.m. That actually takes 3 weeks to get from A to B. This arousal point here is the most difficult one for them to learn to get through. The 5 to 6 a.m. stretch is where the drive to sleep is completely weak. The baby's had 95% of the nighttime sleep already, so they really do get quite fussy in that 5 to 6 a.m. stretch. And once overnight sleep training is going well, then we can start working on the daytime naps. Now, they do take longer. They typically take about 6 weeks to get to a point where they're more consolidated. And typically speaking, the way that works is nap 1 is normally a much easier nap to become consistent than nap 2. And typically speaking, with nap 3, I wouldn't have a client work on that in the crib because it can be brutal. It's better to just use props there and go out for a walk and get some fresh air. Okay, so when it comes to making changes, you've got to have some knowledge, you need some tools, and you need some accountability. So this is like with anything in life. Even if you were to go on a diet, you'd need to know what diet you're going on, you need to know what your plan is going to be, and you've got to be accountable. So whether you're accountable to a coach or whether you're accountable to yourself, accountability is really, really important. It's not something that you want to try, it's more something that you want to do, and you have got to be consistent. You have to remember that a baby doesn't have the same cognitive process that you do, and they're going to follow your lead. And a lot of parents will come to me and they'll say, I really want to go the gentlest way. And the gentlest way for any parent to make changes with their own children is to be consistent. And that is ultimately what babies and children understand. So the first thing you've got to determine is, what is your goal? Like, what am I actually aiming for here? You have to know what you're working towards. You've also got to be able to identify the root cause of your problem. So in my example with baby Jane, that is, we have to stop using the soother to help her fall to sleep, and we have to stop using rocking as a way to help her fall to sleep too. The next thing is you have to determine your action plan. So what that means is you've got to be able to determine your behavior and how you're going to respond to baby Jane when you remove those props. And this is where you need to be within your comfort zone, and you need to break it down into manageable steps for yourself. So that might be who's going to be the one to do the training, what night are we going to start, make sure you've got a clear calendar. You also need to have realistic expectations about what is going to happen. It's completely unrealistic to expect that a baby is going to learn how to sleep better in one night. As I said before, there are some unicorn babies that do it, but they are few and far between. On average, it takes about 21 nights to break habits, which is how long you can expect to be in the process for. And there's one other thing that parents need, and that is they need to be confident. And that is the one reason why a lot of parents will use somebody like myself to assist with the sleep training process, because they just want to be accountable. They want someone to tell them what to do, and they just want to be able to talk something through with somebody. So this is where I'm going to leave the presentation here today. If you have any comments, please put them below, and I'm going to keep checking back to answer those for you. Good luck with any sleep training that you do on your own, and I hope to see you again soon, because I'm going to be posting some more videos. Bye.